I'm Mark Stewart, and I want to present to you all an example of DC spin and projected by mainstream media. The spin comes from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. In June of this year, they issued a report. It says Social Security, keeping more people above the poverty line than any other program. All right, the Center on Budget Policy Priorities has gotten some things wrong in the past. I almost worked for them, okay? As a young intern, I actually chose a different organization, but they had appeal for the semester that I spent in D.C. It was run by another guy named Greenstein. He's moved on. He's now emeritus, and thankfully his name is not attached to this article, but one Kathleen Robig's is. And in her first sentence, she says, Social Security benefits lift more people above the poverty line than any other program in the United States. Highly misleading. And that is because Social Security has extracted so much money from these very people that it lifts over the poverty line, they wouldn't have been below the poverty line in the first place. So I will grant Ms. Romig that there's some line, some income number, and a good chunk of people in their retirement years fall below that for income. And so their $4,500 a month now puts them above that little line. Still not an exceptionally great living when all you're making is $4,500 a month and have a lot of expenses as a couple. Please recognize that this same program for 40 years has been extracting money from you and your spouse. They have been taking at least 7.2%. Now that's the conservative figure, but because Social Security extracts money from the employer too, 7.6% on that side, really lost is somewhere between 10 and 15.2% of your earnings. If you had that money for even half the time, not a 40-year career, keep half of that for 40 years or 20 years and give the rest to the government if you really want to. None of those people who were marginally moved up would be below the poverty line in the first place. Or maybe they would, but they would have spent very happily along the way, funded their kids' education better, been able to take more vacations for themselves, have a second home somewhere. And if they still then were below the poverty line for income, they still had a lot of wealth and a lot of past spending to relish. So it's a horribly misleading statistic. Why is it propounded by CNBC? That's where I first saw this article. Because mainstream media does not want to rock the boat when it should. Everybody, except a few small groups, are hurt by Social Security. I'll get to that in another video. Everybody should be able to be out or have the option to get out of Social Security. You would never start a system like this without being deemed insane, okay? We have a system that says, gee, we're going to hold on to a chunk of your money, and if you live long enough, give it back with a small amount of interest. You can't withdraw it. You can't change the low interest rate for the better. And if you die before you reach then 65, now 67, looks like it's going higher. If you die, you get nothing. You've been extracted all along. Oh, and when you do get some benefits, thanks to the 1984 rules, you're taxed on them. This is an insane if set up a new system. How did we get here? Maybe from the sane, this was back in 1933, times when, there was no other retirement income available. We're 100 years, 90 years beyond that. When there's plenty of other savings vehicles, there are welfare systems, there's almost nobody, unless they want to be poor, who in their old age is poor, and reliant on Social Security. Along the way, the few people who might actually be reliant on Social Security wouldn't be if they had the money to do what they wanted with all those 40 plus years of working. I'm Mark Stewart. Thank you for looking here.